It's cute, it's retro, but it's built for the modern age. This is the Honda E, and it might just be one of the most desirable electric cars, no, one of the most desirable cars, full stop, on the market right now. Of course, you've seen it on the channel before. We showed you it in a static studio in Stuttgart, and Robert drove one through a car park around some cones in Frankfurt. But today is the first time we've had one available to us in its natural habitat, the cities and towns of the UK. And we want to find out whether this is the ultimate urban EV. I'm Rory Reid, and this is Fully Charged. What you need to know about the Honda E is that this is a premium car and it does not come cheap. There are two versions of it. There's the entry-level Honda E, which costs just over £26,500, and then there's the Honda E Advanced, which costs £29,000. What do you get for your extra cash? Well, you get a more powerful motor. I'll talk about that in just a second. You also get a choice of either 16 or 17-inch wheels, heated windscreen, heated steering wheel. You get a digital rear view mirror. The digital wing mirrors are standard on every single car. You get an updated stereo system, and you also get the Honda Park Pilot Assist system, which parks the car for you. So let's take a look around the Honda E. It's a beautiful little car, isn't it? I don't think I've met another human being, man, woman, or child, who hasn't fallen in love with this thing from the moment they've laid eyes on it. It's just got such a cute little face. I learned a new word today, pareidolia, which is apparently when you start to see human faces in inanimate objects. And because of these cute, eager little LED eyes and this button nose, little smile underneath, I'm getting strong pareidolia vibes off this. So up top, you've got the charging port. We'll come to that in a second. The LED lights, as I've mentioned earlier, and a little air vent underneath with two LED fog lights on either side. Love the front. Around the side, really cool as well. Such a smooth design. A lot of modern cars today have a lot of slashes and swoops, and there's so much going on, but Honda have kept this really, really clean. There's one line that flows essentially from the bonnet all the way along the side of the car and then kicks up at the end. And apart from that, it's just really, really simple. There are no wing mirrors. Instead, it uses cameras, one on either side, which play a feed on screens inside the car. You also get this door handle, which is completely flush. Normally that's a feature you'd expect to find on a more upmarket car, the kind of thing you see in Aston Martins and Jaguars, and these only pop open when you approach the car or press a button on the key. Also love the fact that the A pillar, that's this bit, and the B pillar are the same color as the panoramic glass sunroof. It minimizes the amount of body color on the car and just makes it look that bit more premium. It's quite a small car, the Honda E, really, really compact. It's going to fit in any parking space you can care to find in the city. It's a 5-door though, and the door handle is tucked away just here. So you might not notice it's actually a 5-door. They've done a really good job of hiding that. Lovely wheels, these are 17s. And round the back, another face, more pareidolia. These circular LED headlights. The little nose here does a really good job of making the front look a bit like the back. If I had a robot sidekick, this is what it would look like. Right, let's address the elephant in the room with the Honda E, the battery. It's not the largest battery in the world. Now, both versions of the car come with a 35.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, although the usable capacity is 28.5 kilowatt hours, and that gives it a range of 137 miles WLTP. How does that compare with other similar cars on the market? Well, the Peugeot E208 will give you a range of 217 miles, the Renault Zoe will give you 245 miles, and the Mini Electric will allegedly get 145 miles of range. I say allegedly because in my hands, I know that's not the case. I did a video on my channel, Auto Trader UK, go check it out, where I basically ran the battery down from full to empty on a single journey, and I can tell you for a fact, it doesn't get 145. Head over there to see exactly how that went down. Now, I can tell you that in the real world, in my hands, this Honda E has been doing less than the quoted figures. So right now I'm getting an average of 3.4, 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour. Now that multiplied by 28.5 kilowatt hours of usable battery space works out to be around 96 miles of range. Not great. Let's talk about something a bit more cheery though, the way it drives. It's actually quite fun. Like I said, there are two versions, and the Advance comes with a 152 horsepower electric motor, while the standard car comes with a 134 horsepower electric motor. Both have the same amount of torque, both give you exactly the same range, but the difference is acceleration. The more advanced car will go 0 to 62 in 8.3 seconds, while the slower car will do it in 9 seconds. Is that such a big deal? I don't really think it is, to be honest. This is a city car, and let's face it, how often do you even get to go at 60 miles an hour in traffic? Usually not that often. Plus the torque between both cars is identical, so that feeling of strength when you accelerate is going to be very, very similar. The other thing that's great about this car is the turning circle. It's a rear-wheel drive car, which means that the front wheels have loads of room for articulation. They can move absurd amounts without having to worry about doing any work, making the car move forward or backward. Let me show you what I mean. So let's say that you're driving along in town and you've taken a wrong turn and you suddenly need to do a cheeky little about face. Look at this. This car has a turning circle of 8.6 meters, which means I can go round and round and round and round in a space where most cars, quite frankly, couldn't manage it. Not quite as good, I would say, as a London cab, but not far off. Plus it's rear-wheel drive, which means if you're a bit of a petrol head and you want to do skids, you can turn the traction off and get the back end out. Oh, look, I've gone wrong again. Cheeky little U-turn. No problem. No problem. All cars should be like this. Let's talk about charging, because I feel like you'll be doing an awful lot of that with the Honda E, mainly because the battery isn't very big. I mentioned earlier that it has a 35.5 kilowatt hour battery pack, but only 28.5 of that is usable capacity. So generally speaking, most of you are going to be charging this thing up overnight. Now you do that by opening up the centrally mounted charge port on the bonnet. This is good for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, it means you don't have to worry about whether your charger is on the left or on the right. It's right in the middle, so it works either way. The problem is that because it's on the bonnet, you end up with the cable very often touching your paintwork. And if you're doing this every single day with a dirty, grimy cable, then you can end up scuffing your lovely charged yellow paintwork. Anyway, charge options. First and foremost, you have a AC charger, which you can charge up at home from 0 to 100% in around 5 hours, as well as a DC rapid charger, which can take you from 0 to 80% in around half an hour. Sounds quite quick, but it only charges at a rate of 50 kilowatts. But again, the battery's not very big. If your cup's not very large, then it doesn't take long to fill at all, does it? What else can I tell you about the way it drives? That's pretty good, really. It's nice and quiet, I'll give it that. And it's also got some really good suspension. It rides bumps really well. Even though it's quite a small car, you can actually drive at a decent speed over speed bumps and not feel like you're climbing a small mountain. The steering's also very good. It's nice and responsive. It's quite a heavy car though. Don't expect it to be the most athletic thing in the world when going through corners. It weighs around 1,500 kilograms, which is around the same as you'd get in a normal petrol-powered hatchback. In terms of the way you drive it, well, there's a little switch on the center console which lets you go from normal to sport. Sport gives you a slightly more responsive throttle. Plus, you can also have the option of one pedal driving. So there's a button just below the drive button on the center console. Right now, one pedal driving is on. So if I want to, I can push the accelerator and accelerate normally. But if I lift off, eventually it will slow down to a complete stop, which I can confirm that's a complete stop, then off I go again. So you don't even have to worry about pressing the brake pedal. It's a really easy car to drive, especially around town. Behind the steering wheel, you have a couple of paddle shifters, not for changing gear, but for increasing or decreasing the amount of regenerative braking on offer. For me, it's not the most aggressive system in the world, so I generally go between the most aggressive regen when I'm driving around town, or the least aggressive if I'm on a motorway, for example, and I don't want the car to sacrifice any of its momentum when it's moving forward. Oh, look at that. People just stop and let you out. They love the look of this car. But actually, the interior of the Honda E is just as impressive as the outside. The dashboard is wood, don't think that's real wood, and then on the center console that's covered in wood too. But then there are so many screens in this thing. You've got 2 screens which function as your rear view mirrors. They're connected to the cameras on either side. Those are standard, like I said. Then you've got an 8-inch display which contains all of your driver information, all your range, etc. is all contained there. And then you've got 2 12-inch displays which can work independently or together. For example, if I press the home button, what you'll see is that it stretches one wallpaper across both screens, but they can also work completely by themselves. Let me show you this. If I press the All Apps button and then activate Apple CarPlay, my phone's connected via USB down there, I get Apple CarPlay on the right-hand side of the central screen. And then if I want to move that across so my passenger can play around with all the Apple CarPlay settings, I hit this swap button here. That moves across there, and then if I want to use something more relevant to me, such as navigation, I press navigation, and suddenly I've got navigation on my side. Weirdly, you can have 2 navs running, so you can have your maps running in Apple CarPlay and also in the Honda E. So if you want to have 2 people directing you at once, then you can do that. It can take a while to get used to using because it's nothing like any other in-car entertainment setup that I've used, but you do wrap your head around it eventually. And if you get stuck, there is actually this button up here. If you press that, that's the recent button. It lists all of the apps that are open currently, and you can swipe through them. There you go. And then choose whatever app you want. I will say it's not the most responsive system in the world, and the screens themselves are quite low resolution. So if you're used to using a modern piece of consumer tech like an iPad or a phone, going to this is going to feel like a step backwards in time. And it's a very brave move, I think, for Honda to actually dedicate so many screens to your infotainment and navigation features when the screens themselves aren't the best in the world. Oh, I should show you the voice assistant feature. It's actually quite cool. Okay, Honda, show me Italian restaurants near me.
Here are several Italian restaurants. You can choose the restaurant by line number.
Show me which ones have Wi-Fi.
Okay. Here are several Italian restaurants that provide free Wi-Fi. You can choose the restaurant by line number.
Number 1. While we're sat here charging, let me show you a couple of really interesting features that I didn't mention earlier. The first is that these screens have an HDMI port, so you can connect any kind of device you want, whether that's a laptop, a games console, or even an Amazon Fire Stick, so you can actually play content directly on these displays. The problem is you can't actually play any of that stuff while you're on the move, so is it a bit useless? Potentially. Also, the fact that the resolution on the screens is actually quite low means that your device's native screen will probably end up looking better than the displays in the Honda E. Means it might not be as useful as you might think. More useful than that is the fact that this car comes with a normal household 3-pin power socket, so you can connect pretty much anything you want up to around 1,500 watts. Very cool. Plus, it has 2 USB ports and 2 USB ports round the back. Speaking of the rear, let me show you that. Space around the back is pretty cramped. You've got decent enough headroom. I'm 5'11" and I've got about that much headroom to play with. And this seat at the front is adjusted for me. And I've actually got okay leg room as well. I'd say that if you're any taller than 5'11", then you might struggle. And you definitely wouldn't want to sit here for long periods because the battery raises the floor height, so you end up with your legs higher than you might feel comfortable with, almost up around your knees. So long journeys in the back of this might not be the best in the world. Now, onto storage. Let's look at the boot. As you can see, not very big. Pretty small, isn't it, really? This is 171 litres, although it's not really 171 litres, is it? Because it's got these couple of bags in here for a normal 3-pin charger and your Type 2 charging cable over here on the right-hand side. I would say that most people might be able to get away with not carrying at least one of these cables, but given the short range of this car, you're probably going to have to take at least one. And if you're a family person who might be considering carrying around a pram or any of the other paraphernalia of general family life, then you're going to struggle with this car's boot. The Honda E is, on the whole, a great little city car. I like it a lot. I especially love the way it looks inside and out. I love the fact that it turns heads, and I love the fact that it's got so many little extra features up its sleeve, like that really tight turning circle and the really quite usable parking assistant. There are things that I don't like about it. For example, the range isn't as good as I'd like. There's no getting around that. If you're the kind of person that drives more than 50 miles one way, then this isn't a car you can always rely on. Having said that, if you're the kind of person that knows for a fact that you'll only ever drive short distances and you might have a second car for those bigger trips where you might need to carry more luggage, and you don't mind spending close to £30,000 on what is essentially a one-trick car, a car just for the city, then I think the Honda E is definitely worth a look. Right, as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and leave any questions or comments down below. And special thank you to our Patreons, because without you, this channel would be nothing, of course. And as always, if you have been, thank you for watching.